Hi everyone, I am back today with a Sew Your Stash update. And if you aren't familiar with Sew Your Stash, it is a challenge I set for myself at the beginning of last year to try to use some fabrics and sewing supplies from my stash and look to my stash fabrics first when I start a project instead of going out and purchasing new fabrics or impulse buying a lot of new fabrics every time I find something cute. So I extended the challenge to you all, and a lot of you have joined in, and it's been a lot of fun and we've made a lot of progress. And if you want to know more about the challenge, you can check out the playlist that is linked down below in the description box. I have all of the Sew Your Stash videos there, so you can find out more details on it and see if you want to join in with us. And if you do, there's also a Sew Your Stash Facebook group that we would love to have you in. Since my last update at the end of summer, I have made a ton of projects and I feel like I am making a lot of progress using my stash. So one of the first projects I made since my last update was some pillowcases. I made 3 different pillowcases for my kids. Here's an example of one of them. They are the burrito style pillowcase tutorial that I have on my channel. The only difference is that I left off the little narrow trim that is here, that is on the video, since that takes extra time and I just wanted to whip these up really fast. I went through my stash, pulled out some fun prints, and then let the kids choose from those prints which they wanted pillows made out of. This is a really great project if you have some fabrics with larger prints, because you're not having to cut them up too small. You can really display a lot of that print on the pillowcase itself. And with any of the projects I mentioned in this video that there is a corresponding tutorial for, like this one, I will have all of those together in a playlist as well, and you can find that link down below in the description box. That way, if you see anything in this video that you're interested in making, you can find out all the details down there. So yeah, this was a project for my kiddos. Actually, a lot of the projects I'll be mentioning were made with my kids in mind. So next up is the Velcro letterboard bag. This was a really fun project to do. It is not like anything that I've done before, but at the same time, it is kind of similar to some of my other projects. It was inspired by a set of Velcro letters that is from a shirt I had like 15 years ago. So I have been hanging on to those letters for that long. So they've been just hanging around my sewing space for that long. And then some of the fabrics that I used for the bag itself, one of them was from a costume my mom made for me over 20 years ago. And then the other fabrics were some newer additions to my stash. The Velcro's been around a while. So that one really used a lot of different elements from my stash. And it was a fun project that my kids are really enjoying, so that is always a nice bonus. So then I started making some neck warmers because the weather is definitely turning cold here in Oklahoma. So I made myself this neck warmer, and it is super cute. I used my vintage buttonholer to make some large buttonholes so I could use these really fun buttons that I've had in my stash a while. Then there is a snap on the other side, and it's just super cute. It is nice and cozy. It is the same fabric that I used for the lining of the neck warmer I showed in the tutorial, and it is just so cozy and nice. And I'm not even sure where this outer fabric came from. Somebody must have given it to me years ago, but it was so far removed from my stash that it was actually in a tub in the garage, which is where I have a few tubs in the garage that hold like fabrics that I rarely ever use or even think about. And these fabrics were both in the tubs in the garage, so that was really awesome, because that is definitely stash that just like never even gets thought about. So of course it's not getting used most of the time. But I made myself this one so that it could go with some more jackets and things instead of the purple one that I had made last time. And then I decided to make some neck warmers for the kids. So I pulled some flannel out of my stash that I've had, and then for the inside portion, the like fuzzy side, I used some sweatshirt material that was left from the t-shirt quilt that I had made for Jeremiah earlier this year. And so I used it backwards so that the soft side of the sweatshirt material is what is up against their neck, and it's really soft and warm. and I actually have gotten a ton of questions about making neck warmers for kids, people wanting to know what measurements to use and wanting to see an example of how it would look on a kid and things like that. So I actually filmed making one of the kids neck warmers, and that video is going to be up on my Whitney Sews Facebook page tomorrow, because if you didn't already know, I have been posting weekly videos over on Facebook as well. Usually they are similar to what you see here on YouTube, so they are like a re-edit of the weekly tutorial over here, but there's occasions that I post Facebook exclusive content over there, so make sure you're following Whitney Sews on Facebook, because like I said, tomorrow, Thursday, is when my kids neck warmer tutorial goes up, and I know a lot of you have been asking me about that and wanting to make them yourself. For anyone who is wondering about the safety of the kids neck warmers, my kids are 2 and 3, and both of them can easily remove the neck warmers themselves if needed. I just put one snap on this side, one snap on the other, and so they know how to pull it apart and unsnap it if they need to, and then they can actually safely wear it in the car seat as well. We just raise the bottom of the neck warmer up and buckle the car seat underneath it, so it is safe for them to wear in the car seat. It is completely safe for them to wear. Obviously, you wouldn't want to have them playing outside for a really, really long time without supervision, but that's the same way with anything for kids. You know, you just have to be aware and cautious, and yeah, you should be good for them. Peyton loves wearing hers. Skylar kind of doesn't like wearing anything that is like a hat, mittens, scarf, like any of that kind of stuff. Skylar doesn't really like wearing. But Peyton absolutely loves hers, and yeah, I think I'm gonna have to make her a new one like every year or every other year in different fun printed fabrics, which is totally fine because I have plenty of them. So after making the neck warmers, then I dove into making bags, and I had 2 different tutorials go up here on YouTube for drawstring bags. I had this style with the little like ruffle top, and then I had this style which has the contrast casing at the top. They are both pretty quick and easy to make, and I have absolutely been loving making them. They're so good to use your stash because you have the outer fabric, you have the contrast fabric, you have the lining fabric. With these, you have the outer and the lining, and of course the ribbon. I have a ton of ribbon in my stash, and I don't even know why. I don't use ribbon that often, but I somehow have accumulated a lot of it. But thanks to making these bags, I've been able to use some of that up, and I have made, oh gosh, at least 9 drawstring bags in just the last couple weeks, because I'm trying to make drawstring bags to gift Christmas presents in, and I don't think I'm going to be able to make one for everybody, but I have been making a lot of bags. So I pulled out some home decor type fabrics from my stash that were too small to do like a typical home decor kind of project, but they were big enough pieces that I didn't want to just throw them out, so I made bags. So here is one of them. This fabric is what our bedroom curtains are made from, and then it doesn't match at all, but the lining is left from a my infinity scarf with zipper tutorial, and this is just a little scrap I picked up somewhere. So, and I made these in custom sizes to hold specific Christmas presents. Then here is another one of them I made specifically for a Christmas present in mind, like I measured it to fit. So I love these bags because you can make them in any size that you need. This is a remnant that I got at Joann's a long time ago, and then that same plaid left from my scarf video that I did. So yeah, I've been making a ton of bags. These are holding my kids' wooden animals. So there's a zoo set in this bag. There is a dinosaur set in this bag. So I've just been making loads and loads of drawstring bags, and I love them because they're perfect ways to use stash, and they're super easy and super useful. So I am so excited with these bags. So then after I made all those drawstring bags, I decided to make even more bags because if you didn't know already, we are a homeschooling-ish family. I say ish because my kids aren't actually school age yet, but we are kind of gearing up to homeschooling. We do what we call like tot school, which is just like kind of fun learning games and stuff. But we have a lot of supplies. So we've been using like sandwich bags and things to organize like buttons and different pieces and things, but the kids can't reseal the bags themselves, and eventually the bag gets a hole and breaks. So I started making little zipper bags to hold all of our things. So these are just basic bags. This one has buttons that are different shapes. And this is a hybrid of my 5-minute zipper bag tutorial and my lined zipper bag tutorial, because they are lined, but instead of doing the French seams on the sides, I just serged them really quickly to make them super, super quick to make. And because you know what, my kids don't care. As long as they are sturdy enough, it doesn't matter if they look pretty on the inside. They're doing their job, and that's what counts. And even my 2-year-old can zip and unzip these bags by herself. So the kids can be a little bit more independent about getting their things out and putting them back away by themselves, which is always fantastic. So I made this one, which has the different shaped buttons in it. We have this one where I just sewed together some scraps. I didn't have big enough pieces of either of these to make a bag, so I just sewed them together. This one has different buttons that are letter shapes. I don't know if you can see that very well. It has the green fabric on the inside, and I kind of customized the bag so that they suited what we would be putting inside. Then I have this one, which is pink inside and has some flower shaped buttons. And if you're wondering, we use buttons for a lot of different things. They're good for hand-eye coordination, sorting by color, sorting by shape, by size. You can use them for game pieces and like just all different kinds of things. The kids will pretend that they're cooking or making something, and the buttons will be like the soup or the drink or whatever. So my kids just have a lot of fun playing with buttons, so I don't mind having them around for them. And then last up, this is a fabric I've had since like middle school, and there are some dollar store wooden beads in it, as well as some shoelaces that have a knot tied on one end. And the kids practice stringing the beads on it, which is really good for coordination. So really happy with all of those bags that I made, and they are definitely serving a fantastic purpose at our house, and they were free to make. I have hundreds and hundreds of zippers, so these cost me nothing to make, but they are helping our house be more organized, which is always amazing. So now on to some clothing items that I worked on. The first one is a shirt that Jeremiah had picked up at a thrift store. He liked the print of it, but unfortunately the shirt was, I believe, a size 4X, which is much larger than Jeremiah's current size. And so I used a men's shirt pattern for my stash. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it, so I don't have it to show right now, but it was just one of the patterns for my stash, and I used it to resize the shirt. I cut it apart and used the pattern pieces to recut the shirt pieces down to a smaller size, and then I sewed them back together. And I do have a before and after picture. Unfortunately, they are terrible quality, so sorry about that. But they were kind of like an afterthought of like, oh, before I cut this apart, I should snap a quick picture of you wearing it, and it was bedtime, and you know, so sorry for the bad quality pictures. But I resized a shirt for Jeremiah, and it's a really fun like vintage car print, and I used a pattern from my stash. After that, I used Simplicity 3980 to make a 60s style knit top. This is another pattern I've had in my stash for a very long time. So one of the challenges I added to my personal goals for this year was to use more sewing patterns for my stash, and this was definitely a win on that because I've had that pattern for a very long time. So then I used some knit that a viewer had sent to me more recently, and I made myself a shirt, and it was a lot of fun to use the vintage pattern. I've only used a couple of actual vintage patterns that are like 50 years or older, so it was really neat comparing it to how the instructions are written now and how the descriptions and everything compare back and forth. But that one was a really fun project to work on, and I definitely want to use more of my older patterns that I own. Then I made Halloween costumes for the kids using another Simplicity pattern. I actually had to go out and buy this pattern for this specific project, and you should watch my separate review on this one because yeah, that pattern was not worth the money, let me just say. But anyway, while I was working on their Halloween costumes, I did use a few different fabrics from my stash, but unfortunately this project was more of a fail than a win because I ended up having to purchase quite a few fabrics for the costumes, and the pattern called for larger fabric cuts than what were really needed, and I think I ended up adding more to my stash than what I used from it. So overall, a fairly disappointing, discouraging process, but in the end I did end up with some costumes that I'm pretty happy with and the kids really love. They thoroughly enjoy wearing them, and that is what really matters. Like, all the frustrations adding back to the stash and all that stuff really in the long run does not matter because my kids got costumes that they absolutely love, and that's what counts. And lastly, I made myself a Christmas skirt. I used some fabric that a viewer had sent me recently, so that wasn't from stash, and I didn't even use a pattern on it. I just winged it, but I did use a couple of things from stash. So here is the skirt. It is a pleated skirt, and I did my absolute best to line up the prints at each pleat. So here on camera I have trouble actually seeing where some of the pleats are, which is good because it means I lined up the pattern really good. But I made this, I wanted to make it, and then we knew we were going to get family photos done, so that encouraged me to make it in a timely fashion and have it done for family photos. Anyway though, I did use some things for my stash. I used my zipper, I used some vintage buttons. I have several of these identical vintage buttons, and I couldn't decide on like an accent button that I wanted to use because I really wanted something that was just kind of interesting looking, and I couldn't find a specific button I liked, so I thought, you know what, I'll go with 3 buttons. So I did that. The last one is the only one that is actually functional. So there's what it really looks like, is 2 buttons and a buttonhole, and then over here is the other button. I also so there's the zipper on the left, and then on the right side, hidden among the pleats, is a pocket using that same plaid fabric that is left from that zipper scarf project, and then the waistband is lined with it as well. And I really love how this skirt turned out. Oh, and I used some stash on the hem as well. So I bound the hem with this like hemming lace because this fabric is a little bit of a looser weave, I think, and so it kind of like can warp and stuff. So I wanted the hem to stay like perfectly straight while I was sewing it because I hand sewed it. So I bound the edge with that lace tape and then hand stitched to it instead of to this edge of the fabric, and it worked so well. I am in love with how nice the thick hem looks. But anyway, I really love this skirt. I'm so happy with it. I had a few little bits of the fabric left, and I'm going to try to make Jeremiah a matching tie. So I will be using like every bit of the fabric. I did make a drawstring bag, if I can find it. There it is. I did already make a drawstring bag from one of the scraps. And so I have just a little bit of the fabric left. I'm going to try to make Jeremiah a matching tie so we can be all cutesy matchy at a Christmas party that we have to go to. And so I went to the thrift store and I bought a tie for $1. And then I'm going to take the tie apart and try to make a pattern from it and then use that to create a tie. I've never done this before. I've never made a tie. I've never even thought about making a tie until I had that little bit of fabric left, and I was like, how cute would we be if we matched? And Jeremiah was like, okay. So hopefully that works out. If it does, I will definitely share some pictures on Facebook or in a video or something. So fingers crossed that it works out, because I have no clue what I'm doing and I have a very short time frame for making it happen, but hopefully. And then that would be using like every bit of this, which means it would be completely out of my stash and put to good use. So I think that is all of the specific projects that I have to share in this video. Now I do of course do other sewing and things because I create weekly content for this video. I also do orders for my Whitney Sews Memories, which is I make memory bears, and I'm also making some other orders for people. So I definitely have done a ton of sewing, which is incredibly awesome because I love sewing and I love when I'm motivated and inspired and have a lot to work on. So it has been an amazing last few months with doing different projects. I would love to know what you have been working on and if you've been making progress on sewing from your stash. And don't forget about the exclusive videos that I have coming out on Facebook tomorrow. And just follow my Facebook page in general, because I do have a lot of announcements and posts and pictures and things that I share over there that don't always make it into a YouTube video. So all the links I mentioned are down below. And until next time, happy sewing!